Hi, we are finishing the fifth lesson inside the Module One digitalization, and today we are going to talk about effective support and scalability measures in software for future digitalization or digital transformation projects. As we were watching in the previous video, training is key when dealing with change management, digital transformations, or even just with a digitalization uh, project or a digitization, we need to train our current employees. Okay, but we also need to prepare them for the future. Okay, both to the current employees and to prepare scenarios, trainings, materials for new hires that could join the company in the future. Okay, so, in order to ensure standardization, consistency, efficiency, and that people work efficient and that we can identify the best practices and replicate them in order to boost the productivity of our teams, it's important to focus on three main aspects to prepare us for scalability, okay, or to growth. The third one is the onboarding. The onboarding is the first step that a new employee faces when arrives the first day to the company. Okay, so it's where they know their teammates, they know the installations, the materials, they are given with the laptop or the different tools that they need for the day-to-day job. And during the onboarding, they are also training themselves in the solutions or the software that they are using and how does everything works inside the company. And since the very beginning, it's important to include that technical training inside the onboarding in order to the learning curve be as short as possible and with the most guarantee of success possible. Okay. Then the next step or the next aspect is to create manuals of procedures. Okay, this is like the big Bible or the standards of how do we do the tasks that we do in our company. Okay, so in the case of we are growing the team, if we have manual procedures, we can easily train each other, and we don't depend just with the most experienced employee that is teaching and helping the new ones, the new guys, because sometimes they are like very stressed or with working in a project and they cannot take some time to train the new ones. So having a manual of procedures is key for growth and for scalability. Okay, not just for the technology and also for the process documentation of how everything works inside the company. Not everything, but at least the core processes and the strategic processes have to be very clear. And then the team support, it's key too for scalability. It's how our mates are helping us. If we need some mentors, change champions, product owners, IT support, HR support. It's how are we preparing the team to support each other during this process. As I said, during the onboarding, it's the first point of contact that a new employee has with our company, and we need to prepare the resources, the training activities, and everything in order to them understand everything that is required for the job. Okay, some aspects that or some ideas or recommendations that can you take into account is to give them access to e-learning modules or training videos about the software or the solutions, hands-on practice in a safe environment, in a testing environment, or with the help of a mentor or a more experienced teammate. then some tutorials or manual of procedures specifics to their role, if we have them. And also, it's interesting that they can have at least 1 week or a couple of weeks or shadowing with experienced users where they are going with them, learning how they work, how to do the specs, and how everything is on the company. Shadowing could be like 1 week or a couple of weeks, or if we want a longer relationship that encourages trust and boosts results in a mid and long term, we could opt for implementing mentoring practices where you define a mentor, preferable from outside the department, to have a different perspective and to boost that shared vision and to cut silos departments. And then if you can prepare some checkpoints to ensure understanding, okay, some like questionnaires or some not exams but some checkpoints to ensure if they need something or if they are doing it properly. Okay. The manual of procedures, as I said before, it outlines the standard methods and the steps required to carry out the different tasks or processes. And the main steps, the main features that it has is instructions, step-by-step instructions. Then it needs to be defined the roles and responsibilities in the different tasks. If you remember from the second lesson of this module, no, the second, no, sorry, the third lesson, where we were doing process engineering, we defined the RASI matrix. Okay, for defining roles and responsibilities inside the manual of procedures or the processes, we would use the RASI matrix. Okay, and then we could add, or we should add inside the manual of procedures, the templates, forms, tools, and everything that is needed in that procedure in order to reduce the learning curve, okay, and to be more efficient. And sometimes, I don't know, I'm on holidays and a colleague needs to perform one of my tasks. If we have the manual of procedures, I don't need to train them because going to the manual of procedures, they are going to see how do I do my work and they can find directly the templates, the forms, and everything they need to perform the procedure. Okay, and then it should include if there are compliance regulations, laws, or something that is affecting that specific procedure, like dealing with import, export of goods, or if we are dealing with personal data that need to be compliant with the um, data protection from the European Union. Okay, and then it's important to include a version control and updates in order to these manuals. You can easily see which is this version, which is the day that it was updated, and also that manual is stays relevant. Okay, and it needs to be updated when the software is changed or improved or changed version. It should be something live, okay, or live. So it's not something static that you do it and 10 years later it's still the same way. So you need to keep improving it and keeping it useful and updated. Regarding to support, the training, it's a good start. It's a needed start, but the challenge, it's the day two. Okay, what's happening after the training when we are flying alone and working alone? Okay, in this case, continuous support. It's key to ensure that users do not commit or make mistakes or misuse the solutions that we have developed. Okay, so there are four different roles that can be involved in the support. Okay, the first one are the team leaders. They can be like leaders that are defined inside the hierarchical organization. Okay, so they are the managers, directors, etc. Then we have the change champions, which is a role that in change management it's very interesting. Okay, we will learn more about that in the fourth module about the skills, where we have a lesson about change management. Okay, but this role, it's something, it's someone, it's a team of people which is truly motivated and aligned with the change and the implementations that we are doing. Then mentors, which are more experienced employees that are mentoring the newest ones that have entered the company. And then the IT team, it's key, both the internal team and the external team, in order to help them with errors, issues, trainings, maintenance, and everything. So those four roles are critical in the support area. Okay. I've talked about the change management in the previous slide, that we will have some lesson about that in the fourth module, which is related to skills. But here there is a previous step to change management. It's a change enablement, which is the process of preparing the team and empowering them to new ways of working when we start a transformation or digital transformation initiative. Okay, so they have some steps before which need to be done. The first one is awareness and preparation. Okay, it's the first is to communicate the why. Okay, which is the purpose, or why are we doing this? What I'm going to earn, or which benefits are we going to have as an organization, or me as an individual with this project. Okay, then it's interesting to do like a kickoff meeting with all the people to share them what we expect for them, and how is going to be the training and the support and implementation and everything before launching the solution. Okay. I'm talking in this moment about digital transformation of huge projects of software development and digitalization. Okay, if you are just moving from an Excel file to a financial software that is affecting two people, and you are just digitizing something that it's doing in analog by paper to moving it to a checklist in a Power Apps, you don't need a kickoff meeting. You just need a training with that two, three people which are involved, and then supporting them for sure. But mm, remember that change management or change enablement in this case, I am talking about a digital transformation, a big project. Okay, not just for a small implementations that we are changing one program or one software for another one, affecting just a small area, department, or even individuals. Okay. Well, the second phase here would be the engagement and training, building the knowledge, the topics, preparing the guides, manuals, and engaging the workforce. Okay. Once they have been trained and engaged, and we have prepared some workshops with them in order to learn how to do everything. We start with the on the job support, assigning mentors, technical staff to assist them in the daily basis. And then it's important to boost the motivation of the team. We could decide if we add some rewards in order to recognize early adopters, promoters, or if we can like give them some rewards for their job, and then set up feedback loops and adjust the timelines for some efforts depending on the feeling, user pain that we are noticing. Okay, and then the commitment and evolution is for ensure the long term. Okay, so thank you very much. That's the last slide of this.